All right, let's start over. So we're not going to start over, but the intention, bismillah, the intention with all of this is to have a growth mindset and to figure out how to make this process a lot more fun and light and easygoing so that you show up in a much more intentional way rather than feeling stressed and exhausted and like, I don't know how to do this and this is so exhausting and confusing. And that is something that we can actually get out of and get into a more intentional way of doing things, which means acting in a way that is more aligned with your values, which is more aligned towards how can I evolve to be the person that I need to be, the Muslim that I need to be, that brings me closer to Allah. And that will help you actually find your spouse in a much more easier way, right? Easier, lighter, fun way. And when I say fun, I mean like not stressful, just like there's no pressure, there's no anxiety. It's just like, all right, I'm just going to live my life. And if my person happens to come by and I'm just, I'm just scrolling and seeing who is my person out there. Oh, that could be my person. Nope, not really. Okay, next. And dealing with rejection becomes so much easier and lighter. And it's not this big, heavy thing that we always just are just so afraid of, which inshallah we'll be covering today. And so to recap of what we covered from like the past sessions, and there is so much more that we covered, but I'm just going to cover the top 3 basics that you kind of need in order to understand the next steps here. So the first step is understanding your biases. And what that means is, what is the story that you're telling yourself over and over and over again about what the process of finding a spouse is like? So what that means is, okay, when I ask someone, why do you think it's hard for you to get married? Their story is, I don't know how to find people. I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too this, I'm too that. Like whatever that story is, no matter how factual or true it feels, you just have to identify that it's a story in your head. Now, just because it's a story in your head does it mean that like there's a reality out there? Like, are there people out there that will reject you because you're too old? Yes, of course. We're not denying that. But when it becomes the main thought that I'm too old to get married, then that will keep reiterating in your life and you'll keep looking for evidence of how it's true, and it'll keep you stuck in that like vision, in that like thought process. And you will actually attract people that like not that kind of people that you want, because you're so stuck and insecure about your age of like, oh, I'm too old, like I'm never going to find my person. Right? So there was a whole class on that, right? Understanding your biases. And to help with that, just write out what is your story right now about what you think the process is like, and identify what is actually factual and what is a story and opinion that you've either collected from society or collected from the evidence of your past. And part of that, if any of you have seen one of the last videos on my Instagram, I pointed out how a lot of us just kind of live in this corner of like, here's this big circle, and we just kind of live in this corner of what we think is true based on the evidence of who we talk to. Like for example, like if I've talked to like 5 people who believe where it ended in the same direction in the same way, I'm having this belief that, I'm never going to get married, or this is what men are like, or this is what women are like. Women just want this and they don't really care. When you've developed that story, you're going to stay in that corner and you're not going to get out and see your actual potential out there. Okay, so that's part 1. Okay, part 2 is figuring out what you actually want. And this comes to the question is, how do I know if I'm being too picky? Well, you write down what you want, all of the things that you want, and underline the things that are must-haves, like absolute must-have. This person must have it. And then I want you to ask yourself, is this coming from my ego or is this coming from my value? Like, is this something that is actually aligned with my value, or is this something that I just want people to see about me so I can feel better about myself? And there's like a blurry line there, but you know what I mean. Like just asking, is this something that actually matters to me, or am I just doing it because my parents want me to? Okay. And then once you figure out what you want and you have a clear list, when you're going out there and looking for your person, we're only looking for that one person. We don't need a group of people to agree with us. So the mission here is to find your person and figure out, are they my person or are they not my person, and keep going. So, all right, I found someone who kind of matches the list that I'm looking for. And now when you kind of find someone that kind of matches what you want, now the next step is more of kind of committing to a 90-day container of getting to know each other as much as you can. And the reason for this, I say 90 days, and people say, oh, should it be 90 days? Should it be less? More? It doesn't matter. Just more of a container, like a plan of what to do. Because the last thing you want to do is just like kind of go with the flow and just whatever, right? You just have to actually have a container to plan, okay, where are we going with this? Where are we going with this relationship? And during these 90 days, the goal is to get to know each other as much as possible to make a decision by the end of the 90 days of, should we continue or should we not? And it's not a relationship, right? We're not going to be in our feels and flirt and all these things. We're just really, the mission here is just to get to know each other as much as you can. And when you're committing to these 90 days, a lot of things will come up. You ask all the hard, uncomfortable questions. And then once you're done with that, you make the decision, move on to the next steps, right? And so a lot of people can have questions about that. So if you do have questions, just send it to Zafar, inshallah, and I'll answer at the end. Okay. So let me think here. Okay. So today I wanted to, the reason I repeat this stuff over and over again is because we need to refresh and stay in this kind of energy, because it is so easy for our brains to fall off and go back to the self-pity of why we're never going to get married and this is so hard. And when we forget the purpose, when we forget why we're even doing this in the first place, it will feel exhausting. You will feel purposeless. It will feel like there's no hope. And so we have to kind of get back into the energy of it and remind ourselves over and over again. I have to remind myself over and over again of why we're like, what's the point of this, right? So the purpose, when you see this process of finding a spouse, let's say you're here and this finding a spouse is here somewhere, we don't know where. And it's when you see it as a ladder, like we're just going to climb this ladder until we find the spouse. The ladder that it takes to get there are your obstacles that you need to solve in order to actually get to your spouse. Now, what people kind of don't like about this process is because there's so much uncertainty. Like, is my person even out there? How do I know? Like, where am I going with this? And part of this whole thing is also believing and having faith that your person is out there. And right now, what's in your control is to figure out what do I need to do to like overcome my obstacles. And what I mean by obstacles is the mental obstacles that you have, either communication, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with rejection, that as you are climbing this ladder will make it easier for you to actually find your spouse and actually be in a healthy marriage, inshallah. So there's two ways the way people look at this process, right? The first way people look at it is like, this is so exhausting. Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Everything feels like confusing. I feel like there's no people out there that actually want me. I'm not really that, I feel like no one wants me. Like, I'm undesirable. Like, no one actually wants to talk to me. And it's just such a sad self-pity story about how this feels, how this process feels. And the goal here is to get out of that and get into a much more empowering state that feels like not exhausting, like actually motivating to go out there and meet people and talk to people and get to know yourself, get to know other people, so that you actually build up the strength, the character that you need to be in a marriage. And so what that looks like is we're going to start looking at it, whatever questions or thoughts that come up, that's just another obstacle in my ladder that I need to work on and figure out. And everything is figure outable. There's nothing that's like, not, oh, I don't know, like, but Lama, you don't know my story. Like, I'm different. Like, no, it's all figure outable. And that doesn't mean like, oh, necessarily like you're going to end up in a marriage, but mostly that if there's something that's really blocking you, there's always something to overcome it to get to the next level. And when you get to the next level, that version of you that's evolving is the sweetness of just evolving and being that person that you get to be is so attractive to yourself you start desiring like who you are in your life, and you start attracting the person that you actually want to be with. Right? So we're going to get, every time you notice yourself in this kind of, like the first episode was awareness, right? Like when I'm feeling really down or like demotivated and just like, ugh, I don't want to do this. I have to go to another event. That's probably not going to work out. Instead of that, like, okay, I'm going to go to this event, this main event that's coming up, and I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to be anxious. And I want to be someone who works on getting like better at not being anxious when I talk to people. Or I want to be someone who gets better at small talk or gets better at understanding people, understanding myself. Like when you set tiny goals for yourself, like very tiny goals, you actually see yourself evolving and seeing it as a more growth mindset rather than an exhausting, like, ugh, there's no results. What's the point? Okay, so the thing I want to kind of more focus on is how to the types of obstacles that come up, right? And the obstacles and the rejection, and one of them is rejection, right? The obstacles of rejection, like for example, I don't want to go back out there again because or I don't want to talk to this person because what if I get rejected, or what if just the overall fear of rejection, right? And we all have it. No one's gonna completely eliminate it, but I want to minimize it to the point where you're able to take action as in like I want to be comfortable when I'm talking to someone and not just constantly afraid, are they going to reject me? Because that puts a lot of people like, just it holds them back. It holds them from not actually going out there, and they just kind of give up. Like they just kind of like, you know what, maybe it's not meant for me. Maybe I'm just not going to get married, so what's the point anymore? And then they just don't go out there, right? And so two things I wanted to kind of cover. First is, what is your energy and your attitude as you're going into talking to someone? Like, let's say you just matched with someone and they sound like a decent person. When you're going in there and talking, like even let's just start with texting. What are the thoughts going on in your head? Like, what are you afraid of? What are you worried about? Because the way you feel will determine the way you act and the way you text, which is always the energy is always picked up by someone. Even sometimes in text is hard, but even over the phone. But the type of the way you text can determine, like, you can trace it back to how you're feeling in that moment. So for example, if you just match with someone and you're feeling kind of like, this is probably not going to work out, but let me just say hi to get it started. Right? The message is going to be, hey, like, how are you? Very basic, right? But it's very apathetic. You're not even trying. You're just like, I don't know what to say, so let me just say hi, how are you? Okay. Another energy is like, okay, you match with someone, you're nervous, let's say. Okay. Or even you have the thought they should be initiating. They're the ones that's supposed to be initiating. So then you go into it like kind of like hesitating on who should initiate, and both of you are just kind of playing games of like who should start, who like what's going on here, and there's just confusion. It's just not a good conversation. Right? There's so many others. I'm just bringing up the ones I can think of, but if you can't think of others, put it in the chat. So when I'm talking to, for example, people that are struggling with this process, when it comes to actually talking to a potential spouse, they get all nervous and hesitate and all of that, and because they have so many thoughts about rejection, versus when I ask them, okay, when you're getting to know a friend, just a basic friend, like from the same gender, we're not talking opposite gender, we're just getting to know them as a friend, how do you feel? Like, do you get nervous or do you get worried? And the answer usually is no. Like, they're just like, oh, I'm just want to get to know them. Like, you're more curious, you're more fascinated. Oh, like, how many siblings do you have? Like, where do you work? And what do you do in your free time? And you're just getting to know them. Right? It's a much lighter, fun, not stressful way of getting to know someone. And because you're also in the back of your mind, you're not afraid of, oh my God, what if they don't want to be my friend? You're not thinking that. You're just like casually getting to know each other. And what I want to do is copy that feeling and paste it onto when you are trying to get to know a potential spouse, and not in a friend, obviously it's not in a friendship way, but we're just copying that feeling of like, I wonder where this is going to go. Like, where is this going to go? Like more of a curious, adventurous, like, okay, like, what do they do? Is this, could this potentially be my partner? Could this potentially not be my partner? What are they into? What are they, how is this going to work? And it's, you're approaching it from a much more curious, open way, and you're not just dragged down by like how stressful it is when if you were to get rejected, right? So kind of asking, like, kind of when it, just the awareness part of what energy am I bringing into it when I'm thinking, okay, when I'm talking to someone, am I being hyper vigilant? Am I like being extra careful? Like, what are their intentions? I don't know what their intentions are. This isn't safe, or what are your thoughts? And I'd love if y'all can like write in the chat, how do you feel when you're getting to know someone new? I just want to hear your thoughts so I can expand more on each point. But another thing that people kind of struggle with is if they have a past or something that they're ashamed of and they don't know when to bring it up. For example, if they had a past, like, I don't know, like a past divorce or something, and they have this experience that every time they bring up a divorce that they get rejected. So now every time they do kind of talk to someone new, they're hesitating on when to bring up the topic of divorce, or of that they got divorced. So it just comes out awkward and weird. And it's kind of this heavy pressure of like, I don't know when to say it. And for those cases, you kind of have to make peace with what your package is, because right now you kind of have shame around what you've, like, your past. So let me rephrase that. If let's say if you're someone who has let's say a physical condition that you kind of have to bring up to someone, and you're afraid they're going to reject you based on that. The way to bring it up, first of all, you have the internal work for you is making sure you don't have any shame towards it, and you're making peace with, this is who I am, and this is the package of who I am. That includes my past, my divorce, the stuff that Allah has put me through. All of this stuff is part of who I am. Now, when I'm going to talk to someone, there is a good chance that they might reject me for it. And planning ahead of time that it has nothing to do with me. And what I mean by that is when someone rejects you based off of your past or based off of a condition you have, that's their story about what they think is okay and not okay, and that's on them. That's not our person. Because remember, we're trying to find out who our person is over and over again, and it starts with you making peace with how you bring up your actual story, right? So if every time you bring up, let's say you're divorced and you're like you get all awkward and weird about your divorce, it's just going to sound suspicious. Like, what are you hiding exactly? Versus like when you make peace with it, like, oh yeah, oh, by the way, I just want to let you know I was divorced before, and it wasn't a cute story, but alhamdulillah, I'm glad it happened because it made me the person that I am today. And so what I want you all to work on is kind of your elevator pitch of your past, and not making it this big deal every time you meet someone, like, oh, I have to tell them again about this thing that I'm dreading to bring up. And creating a story that you're comfortable with over and over again, that is true, that is more empowering and not something that you use against yourself. Right? Like if I'm getting to know someone and I'm like, yeah, my divorce was terrible, and he was terrible, and it was just terrible, and it, like, it's like they don't want to know that. Like, just get to the point. What was, like, why did it end? Oh, it ended because, we didn't agree on something, and like talking it in a more empowering way rather than like a sob story in a self-pity way. And that's something that you have to work on. Like, you have to rewrite your past and think, okay, I went through this thing, it sucked, but it made me exactly the person I needed to be today. And so the next time you have to bring it up, you're like, yep, this is something that I'm going through. Allah put me through it, and here we are. Now I'm ready to find my next person. Notice how it's not this heavy thing I have to bring up every time. It's just light, and it's like, let's go. We're having a conversation. Are you in? Like, this is my package. Are you okay if, like, that I went through this thing? And if they say no, on to the next. And so, yeah, the main thing is also another thing, just the last thing I wanted to bring up is when it comes to rejection, how can we make peace with rejection so that it doesn't like immobilize us to make any decisions or movements? Because that's a big heavy thing that people worry about. The only reason rejection hurts is because of what you make it mean when the person says no or ghosts you or whatever. So when they say no, the thought that comes up is the obstacle that you need to work on to climb that ladder. So if, let's say, you get rejected and the thought that comes up is, I'm not good enough, or I'm not financially stable enough, or I'm not this enough. Okay, let's just say the thought is, I'm not good enough. Is it true? Is it true? Is it possible that I'm not good enough? Maybe this person didn't see your value. Okay, maybe that's true. But is it true that you as a human being are not good enough? And I'll answer it for everyone right now. If you're a human soul that is living on this earth, you are 100% worthy, because Allah has decided that you are on this earth, and He has given you a soul. He's given you a soul that Allah has determined you are worthy enough, right? So that thought of I'm not good enough is just not even true. So notice every thought that comes up, we just have to write it down and like, okay, is this true? And noticing every time you talk to someone, oh, look, there's another thought or anxiety or fear that comes up. That is exactly what you need to work on. That's the next ring in the ladder. I don't know what those things are called, but the next thing in the ladder that you need to work on, whether that's how to talk to people, whether that's I feel anxious every time I get rejected. I feel every time I talk to someone, I get way too excited and I lose myself. What is all the things? All of those problems are actually the solution that is necessary to work on for you to move forward and find your spouse. Because the goal here is, as you're climbing that ladder, is you're becoming the husband and wife that you are actually, the patience that is needed to build that kind of skill set is required by climbing up that ladder, by working on each one of these obstacles. So when we see it that way, it's more of an adventure, like, oh, like, wow, like I get to talk to all these people and all my crap is going to come up and I'm going to have so much stuff to work on. And so it's actually exciting. Like when you see it in that kind of perspective, it's an adventure to constantly work on, and you're just getting to know every single thing about yourself, about what you like, what you don't like, and just moving forward with every step of the way. So to summarize, two main things, right? What kind of energy are you bringing into when you're talking to someone? What are your fears? What are your worries? What perspective are you having? Are you afraid? Are you anxious? Like, oh, I don't know what their intention are. Do you need to know their intention? What about if you just showed up honestly and just communicated? Right? And then the second thing is just seeing it as more of, and this is, I think, the most important part out of all of this, is seeing this as an adventure of, this is the growth mindset that I need. I need to go through all these obstacles in order to get to the spouse that I'm looking for. And even if you don't, even if, let's say, first of all, I'm not saying it's true, but let's say you don't find a spouse, you just even going up this ladder over and over and over again and meeting people over and over and over again, imagine the type of person you'll be when you see this stuff as something that you grow into, rather than like, oh, here we go, I got rejected again. Like, you just start actually enjoying your life. And I covered a lot from last time about how to be like have a lifestyle that you actually enjoy. But we'll get you if you want to rewatch that. That's from I think the last two ones. But that's it for now. I'd love to hear all your questions, and I'm kind of curious to see what's out there. Yeah.
I was going to get to the questions. We have about 15 questions.
Ooh, okay.
Do you need a water break? Do you need a few minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, you got it. Okay, wonderful. We'll go ahead and dive right in. There were some people that had some login issues, but I think they're in right now. The first question here is regarding emotional intelligence. You covered that a couple of times in your previous session. What does this mean? How do you know that you have emotional intelligence? And why is it so important in the pursuit of a marriage partner?
Yeah. Okay. When the two kind of main components of this, the first step is awareness of what you're feeling and thinking. And why this is so important is when you're in a marriage, when you're in a relationship, if something is triggering you and you don't know where it's coming from, and you don't know that it's coming from your own thoughts, you're going to project it onto the other person. You're going to blame them. You're going to accuse them that they're harming you, when in reality, if you are aware of what you're thinking, you're actually harming yourself by what you're doing, right? Like what you're thinking. So the way emotional intelligence is becoming aware of what is your brain perceiving things as, and knowing that when you're perceiving something, it's all just like a story and a thought that it's not even might not even be true, right? Like I don't know, like let's say like these blue prayer beads, right? I'm perceiving it as blue prayer beads, but if I'm not emotionally aware, I could be perceiving it as like, oh, like this is such an ugly like thing that's hurting me. And I that was a terrible example. Let me, like, what I mean by that is if someone is saying something and I'm not aware of how I'm perceiving it, I can easily blame them, and it creates a huge conflict between us. Versus someone who is emotionally aware has the ability to pause and think, okay, what am I making this mean in this moment that is making me feel pain, making me feel hurt? Okay, I'm making it mean that they don't care about me. Is this true? No, it's not, because there's other examples of where I can see that they do care about me. Right? So that is super essential to having a healthy, communicative, open marriage where you can communicate openly about it. Next question.
Next question here is, Lama, how do you reconcile you wanting to find a beautiful spouse, but understanding that Islam also requires her to dress modestly, sometimes without makeup or too much makeup? Many times they look plain, but that's what she's supposed to do Islamically.
Yeah, that's a great question. Your wife, when she's with you, she can do whatever she wants, right? Like she will dress up for you, she'll put makeup on you, she'll do all the things. Now, when you're looking at someone and you're not, you don't know if like just the base, I think actually it's better to see her at the basic of like no makeup, no nothing, and knowing that she can be enhanced later. And when I say enhanced, like she can dress up for you later. But a beautiful spouse is just, you just have to redefine, what does that mean? Like when you look at her face, are you attracted to her face even without makeup? And unfortunately, right, the beauty standards of today is so unrealistic. Even like people who pretend, who don't have makeup on, look like they actually do have makeup on, but men don't see that. They don't know that. And so when you're looking at a woman and you see that she's dressed modestly, why is that beautiful? And in what way is that attractive to you? And just as long as you're like attracted to her face and seeing like the beauty of her character and her like face and all of that can, everyone, listen, here's the thing, everyone can, if they really put in effort, they can all look like beautiful and up to society's standards and all this, but it's just a preference of who they want to do it in front of. And I think it's a beautiful thing that a woman is choosing to do it only for her husband. So how do you reconcile that? You just gotta, you know what, maybe this face is actually beautiful, and I know I get to see more when I'm married to her. So kind of got to make peace with that, right? Can't really, but yeah, hopefully that answered that question.
Thank you. The next question here is how are we expected to build up our confidence when we go out to Moz events, mate events, when we are meeting people for the first time and having that face-to-face interaction, when we have self-doubt and inhibitions about the way we look, about the way we feel? How are we supposed to get out there and make ourselves more comfortable in these sorts of live situations?
Yeah. When it comes to body image and understanding how you look and feel, those are all thoughts that you have about yourself. So what I would recommend is the next time you go out there, what are you most self-conscious of? Like, what is the thing that you think people are thinking about you? Like, do you think people think you're too, I don't know, you're too fat, you're too tall, you're too short? What are you thinking of? And I would suggest taking those thoughts and taking a look at, is this actually true? And let's say it is true. Let's say you're too short. I don't know. Let's just say that's a thought. Oh, I'm too short. I don't know how I can be confident. I'm too short. Confidence never comes from the way you look. It comes from what you think about the way you look. We have so many examples of women who are not, you know, not traditionally, but like the way society thinks is a perfect body, but are actually very, very, when you're attracted to them because of the way they think about themselves, the way they feel. They're not ashamed of themselves. They go out there like, whoa, like she's confident, right? And because she's built a healthy image of who she is, and she knows that this is the body that God gave her, and this is that she's doing the best she can with what God has given her. And God has created everything, like all humans, to be in perfect form, right? So, and if there is something that you think is that you're insecure about, you just got to work on those thoughts about you so that it doesn't take over. And that's what confidence is. And maybe inshallah I should do a session on body image and confidence, because I think that affects a lot of people. So I'll keep that in mind, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, we've covered quite a few topics in the past, but that would be a good one
Yeah.
to talk about. What is something that someone can do if there's some cultural baggage that they're bringing into a conversation, a relationship, that you can advise them on? Some of the things that people have talked about, and I think this is a question that was asked before, is they don't see their immigrant parents saying "I love you" to one another, or showing public displays of affection or intimacy. They grew up not seeing that. How are they expected to show that in their future relationships? How are they expected to manifest that if they never saw that, if they never came from that?
Right. And so with coming at it from the growth mindset is, what can I do to break this cycle? What can I do to break this habit? Just because my parents did that, I can use that as an example of, I am so motivated to not do that. That is not going to be me. I'm going to tell my person I love them over and over again, and I'm going to keep practicing no matter how uncomfortable it gets. And so, you know, you can see it as a motivator, or you can see it as something that, you know, oh, look, my parents did this, so therefore I don't know how to do it, versus just learning, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do it. And I'm going to, let's say you're talking to your new spouse and you're like, okay, I'm going to keep saying I love you, even if they're not doing it yet. Eventually they'll get there. And you're going to be the leader that shows them how to express love and affection. Just breaking a cycle.
The next question here is, how do we put our trauma behind if we've been the victim of sexual, physical, violent, emotional abuse from family and relatives? And again, this is a question that may be a little sensitive to some folks. So if people do feel uncomfortable, you can feel free to hop off and jump back in after this question. But how do they get past abuse that they've experienced in their past that can help them move along on this life journey towards finding the right kind of spouse?
Yeah. Some things that are hard, there's no getting past, right? There's no getting over and feeling happy about it. There are things obviously that are very traumatic that will stay with you for the rest of your life. And obviously the first way to help with that is processing it with a professional, making sure you're actually seeking help to process the pain of that trauma. And I know a lot of people don't do that. They think they can just, you know, that's just part of life and they should just figure it out. But just when you seek a professional, they will help you process the pain of that trauma so that every time you remember it, it's not as intense as you feel it now. And when it is processed, that doesn't mean you'll feel good about it anymore. It's just more of like, okay, that was a thing that happened, and it's subhanAllah, this is what happened to me, and you kind of make peace with it, not make peace with the action, but more of like the reason why it happened. Let me reword that. Why Allah put you through that situation. And you see it as a more like, okay, I went through that, it sucked. We all agree you shouldn't have went through that. Now, how can I use this to move forward? And I urge you, whoever it is, to not go through this alone, and do seek a professional, and to go through that. And I am offering, again, a 1 hour free session for people who can't afford it, to just help people kind of get through, to get some guidance on where to go, so I can refer you to a therapist.
Yeah, we have about 5 therapists on the MATE team. People that have there was one particularly good one who's dealt with sexual trauma and family violence. So she's very good, and she's been helping a lot of our folks to move forward in this process. The next question here is, how do you reconcile? And I think this question was sent to me twice, but I'm just going to read the second one. How do you reconcile or deal with a situation when a potential partner or their family members ask very intricate and intimate details about what happened for a person who is divorced as a result of immigration, fraud, marriage?
This is more of like, you get to decide what boundaries you want to draw. Like, what are you willing to share and what are you not willing to share, and why are you not willing to share it? Like, if you're not willing to share, is it because you're afraid they're going to reject you, or are you just not willing to share because you just don't want to? You'd rather keep that personal. And so I just want to question, right? Like, if it's a fear of them rejecting you if you share it, I would encourage you to actually like just share and see what happens. And if they reject you based on something that like it's not really your fault, it's kind of an indicator like, okay, do you really want to be with this person? But at the same time, there are things you just don't want to share, and it's none of their business. It's really not. Islamically, whatever happened to your past is not their business. But if there's something that you think is necessary to share, and you want to share it, then go ahead. But otherwise, like, you can just say, I'd rather just not say, and kind of respecting your past. And if they don't, then that gives you kind of a direction of what decision to make.
Okay. The next question here is, how do I deal with the question of asking for a physical checkup or a medical checkup from someone that I'm interested in? We are getting to that next stage. We met through the MATE platform, and they're asking me to do a physical checkup, a medical checkup, and a blood test to make sure that there's no history of illnesses or genetic diseases. I'm a little awkward and shy about pushing back on this, but how do I resolve something like this? Is this something that's a deal breaker? Is this something that I should move forward with? What's your advice here, Lama?
Are you saying the person is asking them, or they want to do it?
The person that they're interested in, it seems like they're being asked to do a medical checkup and a blood test to make sure that there's no history of genetic. Maybe there's some history there. Maybe the individual, the brother may have a disability or something, but the interested party is asking them to do a medical checkup, physical checkup, and a blood test before they can proceed.
Yeah, and two things, right? Like we talked about one of the sessions, like honest communication is openly communicating. Hey, like I feel really uncomfortable even doing this, and the reason I feel uncomfortable is because X, Y, and Z. That's one way to approach it. And I lost my train of thought, but there was that part, right? Always just communicating, this is something that kind of bothers me, and oh, there we go. So the reason, if the reason that you don't want to do it is you're afraid of them rejecting you, I always just want to just ask, like, is it okay, like, to say, can you say no openly and be like, no, I would rather not do it because let's say if they find out anything about your history, they might reject you. Like, what is the intention for you? Like, why do you not want to do it? I'm not saying there's a right and wrong way. I'm just curious for you. Like, what's your reason for it? Because if your reason is I'm afraid that if they find something out, they'll reject me and I'll never get married, that's a different story. Then I just don't want to do it, and I just don't want to. And like for a reason of like I just don't want to. And that's two different things, right? So for you, just questioning, do you not want to do it because of fear of what they'll think? Or do you want to like just say no and stand your ground kind of way? And that's all up to you. But just questioning where you're coming from feeling wise, and that really helps to make the decision you want to make.
Got it. We've been pushing for a lot of prenuptial agreements and conversations around prenuptial agreements. So there's a few questions here that have come through prenup. We always advise our members to please make sure you get with a lawyer, get with a specialist, get with an imam, and put everything in there about the prenuptial agreements. How many times you want to be intimate in the bedroom, who has the rights over the children and property and wealth and all of that stuff. So the question here is, Lama, how do you respond to someone who wants a prenup but asks you to trust them? Isn't that by default mistrust or a business transaction? What is allowed to be put in a prenuptial agreement? Can you put non-financial items as well? Islamically speaking, shouldn't the husband be the main caretaker of the house?
Okay, when it comes to what's allowed and what's not allowed, I can't answer that because I don't know. I'm not a scholar, obviously, but that's Sheikh Joe Bradford. I know he covers a lot of this stuff. If you follow him on Instagram, I know he covers what's allowed, what's not allowed, and all these things. So definitely check him out. The first part of if they ask for a prenup and they say also, can you trust me? First thing is, okay, when someone asks for a prenup, why does that immediately mean that they don't trust you, or like there's a mistrust there? Because what if we just decided that a prenup is just part of the process, and it's not something about like, oh, I don't trust you, you don't trust me. It's more of like, you know what, I am willing and ready to commit to you no matter what. And let's just be real for a minute. Sometimes some things happen where some things might happen, like let's say to samahallah, I don't know, someone just had a deal breaker and we had to break up. This prenup is for us, for both of our safety, right? And it can feel uncomfortable, and allowing them to feel that they don't trust them. And even though you're telling them, hey, like, I'm being really honest with you, I know this is weird and awkward, and I feel like when you're asking for a prenup, it feels like you don't trust me, but I'm working on it to feel like, okay, this is something that it's necessary to do, especially since all the divorces we've seen, and it's been a disaster because they don't have a prenup. I think for us to feel that that security, it would be very good to have a prenup. And it has nothing to do with our trust or mistrust. It's just something to protect both of us.
The next question here is, what if you're supposed to feel insecure and sometimes not enough some of the times? How do we handle that, Lama?
I didn't understand the question. What if we're supposed to?
Yeah, what if we're supposed to feel insecure, and what if we're supposed to feel inadequate sometimes? Is that a normal feeling, or is this some?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Of course. Okay. So let me back up for a second. Of course, it's gonna come up, the lack of confidence, the insecurity, the feeling inferior, feeling all these things. They're gonna come up, but building the emotional awareness is knowing that I'm feeling this way because of what I'm thinking, and not the actual reality that I'm inadequate, right? And so yes, we're gonna feel inadequate, we're gonna feel all these things, but what helps is taking responsibility for it and taking your power back. Like, the only reason I feel insecure is because I'm telling myself that I'm not good enough, and that's normal, right? We all feel that. I feel this every other day. There's nothing like, it's not a problem unless you like make it your identity of someone. You're just someone who's not good enough, versus like it's just a passing thought. Like, yep, right now I'm just feeling not good enough, and it's because of a thought that I'm thinking. Right. So just watching out for, is this kind of a main thought that you're thinking every single day, and it's kind of like a big belief, versus it's just something that happens every other, like when you talk sometimes, and it's normal. Whatever you're going through is normal. Let's just start there. And we just have opportunities to work on to notice when we're feeling those feelings.
Next question here is from a sister. I've been attending Half-Hour Deen, Suba, and Maid events in 3 different cities. And I've been rejecting a lot of the brothers, unfortunately. How do I know that I'm being too picky? How do I know if I'm the one who's being too picky?
You just at first, again, like kind of trusting your gut in the beginning. Because this thought of like, am I being too picky? We can overthink about it and be like, oh, like, am I being too picky? Especially women are told to not be too picky. And I just want to throw that out the window because it's not true. Sometimes women, like, they lose the ability to trust themselves in their decision because they keep telling themselves, oh, maybe I'm too picky, maybe I'm too picky. Okay, so that's one side of the spectrum. I'm talking to the people who don't really trust themselves and just constantly tell themselves that I'm too picky. And then there's the other side of the spectrum that I haven't met many of them, but like they're just like, I want this, and this, and they have to have a PhD, and they have to have this much money, and this, and this, and they have to look like this. And like, it's like, okay, buddy, let's slow down. Like, why do you need this? And that's like, again, remember, ego versus values. Like if something you're seeing, let's say you see someone you're not really that attracted to, and then your brain is telling you, oh, you're being too picky. It's like, not really, because I want to be someone that I'm attracted to. So let's stop there, brain, and let's trust ourselves that this is not my person. Right. And it always goes to the balance of like, okay, why, asking yourself, when I'm rejecting this person, why? What is it for me? Because sometimes it can be self-sabotage, right? Like, oh, like finding like a one small insecurity and be like, oh, that's it, they're not my person. Like, why? What is it that is like stopping you from like not giving this a shot? And if your brain is telling you very clear answers of like, yep, they're just not attractive enough for me, or like, I just don't think we're a good fit, then trust yourself and move on. And I think that's another topic I should talk into, is knowing when to trust yourself. Because that is like a skill you can build. So the faster you make decisions, the more you can move on to the next person. So we don't have sit here and drama all day about, am I too picky or am I not? You just make a decision and move on.
I know these questions are very tough for some of you. I know it's extremely hard, extremely challenging, the fact that you're being vulnerable in front of an audience. But keep in mind that this is your family. These are your brothers and sisters who love you and care for you and want the best for you. So you being vulnerable and you opening up like this, that's a growth mindset right there. That in itself, you're growing as a person, mentally, spiritually. So inshallah, this is how we support one another. The next question here is, Lama, I get nervous about missing the red flag. One thing they say, I never know if I should go with my gut instinct or push through and give them more chances. I get exhausted more with deciding what to do with them rejecting me. I started talking to one person, one guy, and I asked where he lives. He said Texas. I heard that Dallas is nice and beautiful. It's a great Muslim community. He said Dallas is nice and then said his ex-girlfriend lives in Dallas. I feel that weird thing to bring up and told him that. He apologized and said he didn't mean to offend me. What are your thoughts on that? Should I give him more of a chance?
Okay, so I think if I could summarize the question, is how do I know when to give someone a chance or not? Is that the summary of that so far?
Yeah, I think she felt a little awkward about him bringing up the fact that his ex is also in Dallas and he's in Dallas. It may be some concern or fear of her that, okay, why is he bringing that up? And because his ex is there, is she going to play a part in the future project? And again, if we misunderstand this question, sister, feel free to unmute yourself and send us a clarification or send me a message, and I'm happy to clarify that. But she's basically asking what are the thoughts on that scenario?
Okay, yeah. So you're texting him, everything's going good, and he brings up the thought or the fact that, like, oh, my ex lives in Dallas. And then now you're like, oh, what do I do now? Okay. Now, approaching it from a growth mindset, why does this bother you? Why does it bother you that he brought up his ex? What does that mean? Okay, so maybe your thought is, oh, like, what if she's still part of the equation, or what if she's still kind of talking to him? And if that is a concern for you, you can bring up, okay, hey, like, I've been having some thoughts, like, you brought up your ex in Dallas, and this is all me, right? So I'm talking out loud here, and I'm just wondering, like, is there a reason you brought up your ex, or is this going to impact our future, or like, do you still talk to her? Well, all these questions, right? We're not just gonna stop and be like, I don't know what to do. We're gonna keep going, and we're gonna inquire, like, okay, because like it's kind of like, I'm glad he brought up like he lives in Dallas. Like, wouldn't you want to know his who he is right now? Like, he's someone who's comfortable saying these things. And so now your thought is like, okay, is this really a deal breaker that he brought up his ex? And if it is, why? Because I mean, the reality is we're in a society that has a lot of distractions and things and stuff like that. So how are you going to deal with it personally? If he were to bring up his ex again, or do all these things? And you can even communicate, hey, like, when you bring up your ex, it bothers me because I feel insecure. I feel whatever the thought is, whatever the feeling is. And in that moment, you're building the skill of how to communicate when something is bothering you. Right? When we have our growth mindset glasses on, we're just looking for, what can I do to improve the way how I communicate, how I figure out conflict, how I figure out things when I'm uncomfortable. So if that answered your question, let me know. If it doesn't, you can just clarify with Zafar.
Yeah, and you can also schedule that one-on-one time with Lama as well. I'll put her calendar here in the chat window so you guys can schedule that one-on-one session and go further into that. I know sometimes it's not that easy to go into further details in a public setting. The next question here is, I get worried about family issues, Lama, like my parents are having problems, and would it be something to bring up on how it makes them feel?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I think what she's trying to say, and again, to the individual asking the question, feel free to unmute and ask the question if you feel comfortable doing so. The question is, I get worried about family issues, like my parents are having problems, and would it be something to bring up on how it makes them feel? I think they're talking about bringing it up with the individual that they're talking with.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I mean, let's just first of all admit that all of our families are not normal. Let's just start there. None of us have good like perfect families, I meant. Right. And so when we have problems about, maybe let's say your parents are going through something, and you're worried that the spouse or the potential person is won't like that. It's like, first, your step is to, again, make peace with where you're at, with what your package is. And when I say package, that includes the mess of the family. So it's like, yep, that my family does these things every now and then, and they're just showing me an example of what not to be. This is how in my future, with my future spouse, this is how I'm going to communicate. This is how, like, this is what I like to do. And kind of, like I said, remember, owning the whole thing in a way where you're not ashamed of it. It's just part of it. Like, and anyone who acts like their family is perfect, they're lying. Like, everyone has some sort of issue or problem. And so instead of making it seem like, oh, like, this is going to be a problem, they're going to reject me based off of it, it's more of like, this is what I'm going through, and it motivates me because now I get to be an example of what a marriage is, and I get to break that cycle.
How are you doing? You want to keep going for a little bit longer, or
Yeah, let's keep going. Yeah.
We've got about 7 more questions, and some questions are coming in. Some of them are repetitive, so I'm not going through the same questions. When it comes to making the right decisions in a marriage, I feel paralyzed, and some of it is paralysis by analysis. I always ask myself, is this the right decision for me? Are there better options out there? Should I keep swiping right until the right person comes along? Am I marrying the right person? How do I get over this hurdle, Lama?
Yeah. First part is kind of answering those questions for yourself. Is there someone better out there? The answer is always yes. There's always going to be someone better looking, better, smarter, all the things. There's always going to be someone better out there. Now, you are making a decision on, this is the package in front of me. Do I want this for the rest of my life? Am I making do I want to commit to this? for the rest of my life? And what are the reasons why it's you don't want to? And be very, very honest with yourself first. Right? Like, let's say if someone, like, let's say they're not financially stable and you're just not in the mind state like right now to be with someone who's financially struggling, or if their deen is just not on point and you're just not someone who wants to be with someone on their deen, why? Okay. And that could be a preference, like it's one of your things that you really, really want, and you'd rather just go and find someone else and not work on that. And knowing that the brain will always, always, always look for the grass is greener on the other side in every aspect, even when you're married, even when you're in love, it's always going to do that. But you just have to kind of guide it to like, okay, what actually makes sense here? Does this make sense? That do I want to be in this? Why do I want to be in it? And if you have a strong, like really strong gut feeling that keeps telling you, like, I don't know if I should do this, I don't know if I should do this, and it's really strong, it's called relationship anxiety. If you Google it, there's a bunch of videos out there on that, of just feeling constantly like you don't know if it's meant for you, you don't know if it's meant for you, and it's just, there's ways to work around that and answering those questions for yourself, knowing how to calm yourself down, and then making a decision on that. There's that, and then there's the other part of like, you don't really want to be in it, and you're just telling yourself, I don't know if I should, because of the fear of like, what if I don't find another person, or what if I'm just settling, or what if, like, whatever questions come up. Those are something you have to kind of talk through, and this is kind of hard to answer in one simple answer, right? It requires a whole session. Maybe I should add that to the list of things to talk about. How to know if someone's the right person. And ultimately just goes back to a decision. It's a decision, you commit to it. You're not, it's sometimes people, you have this perception that you're going to feel this amazing, incredible fireworks that you've met your person, and it's not true for everyone. Sometimes it's just a decision. You're like, all right, this makes sense, let's go. We line up logically, logistically, it all makes sense, so let's just keep going. And so that's just a decision you make. And then when you have these thoughts and fears about all the other things, that's just something to be addressed. And you can book a session and we can talk through that, because
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Inshallah. Next question here is, how do I know the difference between arrogance and confidence, Lama? Some of the guys who are confident in what they're doing and confident in the way they approach me, sometimes they come off as a little strong, and I perceive them to be a-holes, and others are just basically they're in that position where this person is struggling to distinguish between what is confidence and what is arrogance, and how can they distinguish it. There's a whole rambling scenario, but I want to, because of time, I want to cut to the chase.
Yeah, a simple definition, right? So confidence is when you believe you're amazing and you believe other people are amazing just as much as you are. Like they don't put other people down. Like they're like, okay, look, like you walk in, you're like, okay, like let's go, like I have this amazing thing to offer, and you have this amazing thing to offer, and we're all just, they see other people as the same. They're not putting themselves above other people. Arrogance is saying, okay, I'm amazing, I'm the best there is, all of y'all are just not it, all of y'all are inferior, I'm better than all of you. That's what arrogance is. So part of it really helps also to understand how narcissism can show up in people. And I would be very careful of people who are like extra overly kind of charismatic for no reason, just a little too much, right? There's a reason for that. They're trying to prove to people I don't want to go too much into it, but there's a lot of videos online that explain how to catch on to someone who is more on the arrogant narcissistic side. And again, there's always experts out there, and I always mentioned Dr. Amani, and some people find other sources as well. So just more on education of what's the difference.
The next question is a good segue, because it talks about the good narcissism and the bad narcissism. Can you differentiate between the two? Because some of the narcissism can be channeled in a productive, good way towards bringing about change or entrepreneurship, or be charismatic and find leadership. And then obviously there's a negative narcissism. Can you elaborate on that? Because that was going to be the next question.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not an expert in the narcissistic role, but so again, Google that more. But just a brief one is a good narcissism is when you can, like, it's not taking over, right? It's not like this is who you are as a personality. Like, I'm just, how do I say this? Like, I don't know if I can explain it the right way, but it's confident people, you actually feel really good around them. You feel good around confident people. You don't feel like you're put down. You don't feel inferior. And I would say the same when narcissism is used in a healthy way. And all of us have some sort of narcissism in us. It's not like it's a bad thing, but it's more of, is it used in a way that's useful to you, and is it serving the people around you as well? So that's how I would define it. And again, I don't like to claim I'm an expert in that, so just watch the videos, and that can help.
Next question here is that Lama, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. I know I have negative feelings, and I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us this way to as a test of our life, but I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm not doing enough with my parents. I feel like I'm not doing enough in the mosque, in the community circles. I feel like I'm not doing enough in the pursuit of finding the right marriage partner. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, this is everyone can relate to this one, right? And we live in a society where we constantly have to be doing things to feel worthy and productive, and move towards our goals. And so it feels like when the default thought is we're never doing enough, and that we should always do more. And it feels like a true thought that we're constantly just living off of, just over and over again. So it explains a lot of the stress that we have, a lot of the just intense, we're just exhausted. It's exhausting. It really is. It's exhausting. And the way to kind of overcome that is learning how to rest. And that is the most uncomfortable thing you can do. Like learning how to just not do anything, and telling yourself, giving yourself the permission you need to be like, you know what, I'm not doing anything, and I'm not productive on purpose, because when I'm not productive, that doesn't mean I'm less worthy. That doesn't mean I don't mean anything. It just means I'm just taking a rest, because Allah has commanded us to rest, and we're not designed to work round the clock, take action all the time. And we've been in a society that's filled with stimulus and things that we're not created to be around all the time. And so it's such, again, a mission of resistance to what has been forced on us, which is constantly doing. And it can feel like also, because of what we've learned from society that we have to keep doing, we do that with Allah. Like, Ya Allah, I'm not doing enough, and I don't deserve your blessings, and I don't deserve anything. And this is probably why my du'as are not being answered, because I'm not doing enough. And that is it's so toxic to your relationship with Allah, because that's not how Allah works. He doesn't need your petty actions for him to create the results that is destined for you. And that's why it's so like important to watch out for the socialization that you've been we've all been just bombarded with, to again combat that and start over and be like, okay, I know I'm having this thought that I'm not doing enough, and it feels really true, but it's only true because society keeps wanting me to run on a hamster wheel over and over again. And it's a decision to stop and resist the urge to do it, and to say, you know what, I'm gonna rest. And a book I highly recommend is called Rest is Resistance by I think her name's Tracy something, but Rest is Resistance. And it's one of my favorite books, because it just, sometimes you just need to stop and just like, what is enough is enough. And what is enough is defined by we go by what the Quran says is enough. And that we find that in Surah Al-Asr. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. So all humanity is at loss, or I don't want to translate the wrong way, but like we're wasting our time unless we're doing the three things. تَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Right? And so that's a whole story again. but yeah.
Next question. I've got about 8 more questions to go. We should, if we go over a little bit over time, do you have a hard stop in 20 minutes, or?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. I want to make sure. So one of the next question here is, I feel that once I've checked that mark of marriage, then I'll be happy. Is that the right kind of feeling? Do I feel like okay, I've got the job, I've got the car, I've got the home, check mark the marriage, then I'll find my happiness. Is that right, or is this an unrealistic expectation of society?
No, it's a trap. It's a trap. No, our brains always tell us this thing. And we have so much evidence of, if you even think of yourself 5 years from now, where you are thinking, okay, once I get this job, then I'll be happy. And notice how you got the job and you're still not happy. Because our circumstances don't create how we feel. It's always our thoughts that create how we feel. So, and this is why people get trapped in this, like, okay, I need to get more. I need to get more. I'm never going to be happy unless I reach this version of completion, which is only Jannah, right? That doesn't exist in this world. Happiness can be accessed right now because Allah has taught us if we're just grateful, we'll be happy. Like it's in the science books, it's in everywhere. We just have to be grateful for what we have right now in this moment, because here's the thing, you're going to get married and it's going to feel cute again, like you'll feel like, oh, I've accomplished it, but then you have a whole set of problems you're going to have to work through again. How to communicate, how to deal with a whole nother human, how to there's so many problems. And like single and married, they both have their pros and cons. So you can either choose to like be like, no, I can't enjoy being single, like I just have to get married, or you can enjoy the ride right now, enjoy being single, enjoy the benefits you have and then when you get married, you'll enjoy that too. But there's no such thing as it's better over there. It's always accessed right now with gratefulness, with alhamdulillah, like for what you have.
That's an interesting segue into the next question here is, should I care what people think? I have grown up in a South Asian culture where it's all about perception. What will people say? What will people talk about? What will people perceive? How will I be looked as a reflection to my parents? Should I set so much focus on how people should perceive me, or should I focus more on how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should look at me?
I mean, I think you know the answer to that, questioner. You because the way you even asked it was clearly, and we all know like we shouldn't care about what people think, and we are told that, and we should care about what our reception of Allah. But the reality is, where our brains are wired to care about what people think. Like subconsciously, our brain does not want to be kicked out of the tribe. We want to feel accepted and loved and cared for. So when we have thoughts of like, what will people think of me? You just don't want to get rejected and kicked out of the tribe, and your brain thinks you're going to die, like literally left out and just not cared for anymore. So to bring that back is like, okay, what do I actually do care about that also people do care for? Like, does reputation, does it matter to me? Do I want to marry someone who's really I don't know, just not a good person in general, and they just like, it's all a personal question at this point. Like the answer to this, I care about more of what you think, what you want, what are you willing to live with for the rest of your life, what actually matters to you, and what matters to you, is it aligned with what Allah wants from you? And so yes, especially in the what you said, right, the South Asian culture and all of that, it's a reputation is a big deal. And it is everywhere, but I think I see it more intensely there. And it's like, that's also one of your obstacles that you can work through, as like, do I want to be someone that cares what people think, or do I want to work on creating my own version of what I want, and kind of resisting and getting out of that bubble, and creating the life I want so that I can be happy, so that I don't follow the trend of what people are doing. And that's just a choice. Some people are willing to do it, some people aren't. There's no right and wrong way. It's just, you just think of what are you willing to live with for the rest of your life.
The next question here is about cognitive bias. Lama, you talked about cognitive bias in one of your first early sessions that you did with Mate at the beginning of the year. Can you please clarify a little bit more about cognitive bias? Because I feel like I don't have a firm understanding of what that is.
Yeah. Cognitive bias is part of the emotional intelligence part is understanding cognitive bias as well, right? Which is when I'm believing a thought. Let's say I'm believing the thought that I'm not enough. I'm just not enough as a human being. or I'm not good enough. So every time I talk to someone, and let's say I get rejected, my brain will focus and use that as evidence of, see, this is why I'm not good enough, and use that evidence to build the thought that I'm not good enough and make it even stronger. And so, which is why people are afraid of getting rejected, because they're afraid that that thought might be true. Like, if I get rejected, then it's going to be true that I'm not good enough. So cognitive bias is realizing the only reason I'm believing it is because I have this thought and it's looking for evidence of how it's true. To give another example, okay, let's just say I don't know, let's just say I believe I'm not pretty enough. And I see like billboards of women who look differently and not like me, and my brain starts focusing on, see how like I'm not pretty, and look how these other people are pretty, and therefore I'm ugly, and this is just building more evidence against yourself of how it's true. Whatever you believe, your brain's going to look for it of how it's true. And that's just cognitive bias. It just looks for evidence of what is true. It's on a mission to ignore whatever you believe to, like, it's going to look for things that are true and ignore anything that's that resists that belief. So our job is to think, okay, this is the belief I'm having, and what way is it not true, to stop your brain from looking for evidence of things that it's not serving it, and constantly building beliefs that are not true. And if you Google cognitive bias, that'll help explain a lot more too.
The next question here is, I feel anxious when my potential match doesn't text me back immediately, and my thoughts spiral into thinking that I have lost his interest. What can I do about that?
Yeah, so let's put it on our growth mindset glasses on. The thought there is, I have lost his interest, which means, and when your thought spirals, is, what is wrong with me? Why would someone lose interest in me? Is it because of this? Is it because of me? Is it because of it? It goes down that spiral. So the thought that's causing that, you just mentioned it, right? Self-awareness. He's lost interest in me. Now, why is it a problem that he lost interest in you? That, first of all, the fact is he hasn't texted back, let's say in 2 hours or 3 hours. Okay. And the thought that's coming up is, he has lost interest in me. That's what you're making it mean. Versus the fact of, he hasn't responded in 2 to 3 hours. It could also mean he's busy. He doesn't have time right now. He just doesn't feel like texting back right now. Doesn't mean he's lost interest in you. It could mean 10,000 other things. But even then, I like to go to the worst case scenario of with what your brain is believing, which is, okay, maybe he did lose interest in you. Why is that making you anxious? Now, what makes you anxious is what you make that mean, that he has lost interest in you. And the example I always like to give is when you're walking into an ice cream shop and you're choosing the flavor, mint chocolate. Okay, that's your flavor, you like it, and you're not choosing the flavor vanilla. Does that mean the vanilla is any less delicious to other people? Like, you're interested in the mint chocolate and you're just like, but I'm just, you don't want the vanilla. So does that mean like the value of the vanilla is less? No, it doesn't. So when he loses interest in you, that doesn't make you less valuable, doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It just means you're not his flavor. And that's his loss, because he hasn't gotten to know you. And he never will know you, because he just created an image of what he thinks you are, which is not true, because he didn't get a chance to get to know you. Right? So, but the spiraling part comes from shame of what you make it mean about you. I'm not good enough. I would just look into what those thoughts are and just question and know that's just a story and it's not real.
The next question here is, nowadays there is a lot of green card fraud and visa issues. For example, a guy on a visa asking you to marry him to help him out a green card. Any advice here on these green card issues? Can we put waiting periods, or should we just filter them out? What's your advice here?
Again, going back to honesty, like, listen, I've had these issues where I've seen these stories about green cards and I'm scared. So I'm going to bring this up. It's going to be uncomfortable. Like, and kind of bringing it up in a very like slick way. Obviously, I'm not saying like, are you marrying me for my green card or for a green card, but more of like, this is the issue, and you're going to do the best that you can to make sure you're actually asking the good questions. And because I think what I've seen is when people fall into this green card trap, some people don't really take the steps required to get to know someone, to get to know them on a real level. They're just like, okay, someone's here to marry me, let's just see where this goes, and they kind of go with it, and they don't really get to know the person on a deeper level. And so it falls into that trap. And that's obviously not everyone, but I'm just from the examples that I've seen, that I've spoken to. But on the other hand, right, making sure what you're doing, taking action, taking responsibilities. Are you asking the questions? Are you not afraid to lose him? And like sometimes people don't ask uncomfortable questions because they're afraid, what if they reject me? And I'm like, go ahead and ask those uncomfortable questions and be uncomfortable on purpose to train your brain to be uncomfortable and ask the hard questions so that you're not uncomfortable when the divorce happens, because that's way more uncomfortable. So that's my answer to that. Ask the uncomfortable questions.
The next question here is regarding coaching. So Lama, do you offer coaching to brothers as well? There are multiple brothers here on this channel who want to know if you do life coaching for the brothers, or are you exclusive to women?
No, I do for the brothers too. Yeah, I have many clients who are men. So
Okay.
Power to them for getting help, and alhamdulillah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I do help both. Yeah.
The next question here is Lama, why is the dating process so broken? That's a can of worms, right?
Can of worms. Yeah, it's a can of worms.
Oh,
I'm just gonna blame the world as that.
Short and sweet.
Short and
Okay.
sweet. Yeah.
Next question here. Next question here is Lama, why do you oops, sorry. The next question here, Lama, what is the ruling here on not completing half my deen in this dunya? There is threat that there is the conversation about if you don't find your partner here in this life, then maybe he or she is waiting for you in the next life. What if I'm not able to find that partner here in this life? Do I reside myself into waiting for the akhirah, for the next life, to find my righteous spouse?
Okay. I've covered this specific question last time, but I'm gonna cover it again. When we have the thought, I don't know if it's meant for me or if my spouse is in this dunya, it's a kind of a way your brain is kind of copping out and realizing, you know what, I'm not finding it according to my evidence of the people that I've talked to. I keep getting rejected, and it looks like it's not meant for me. So I guess that just sounds like what that is. It's just not meant for me. And what that thought does is so poisonous, because it's just kind of like, it makes you give up, because obviously when you're thinking like, God has not written it for you, so why would you even try, right? And so it's so important to see, okay, how do we know if it's meant for you? I went back to the question of, if my goal is to get $1 million, and how do I know if I'm meant to have $1 million? I just have to keep working on it, mindset wise, strategy wise, whatever it takes to keep going at it until I reach that $1 million. Now, unless Allah has taken my life away, or Allah has, maybe put me through a really bad disease that makes me incapable of continuing, then I can see clearly it's not meant for me. But other than that, if you're basing that off of the amount of rejections and things that have not been working, that you can't say that it's not meant for you. You have to keep going and say, and know, Allah, ya Allah, I really, really want a spouse, and it is meant for me. I know it's meant for me because it's in the Quran. We're created in pairs, and Allah has as a soul written for me, and Allah will answer my dua, and I just have to keep going, and I have to keep my keep going, no matter how hard it is, and no matter how incredibly draining it is. I'm going to keep working on it to make it feel much more aligned with what Allah wants for me. And I'm going to keep going, and I know He's out there. But the second you say it's not meant for me, that's a cop out. It's not true. You don't know that. You don't know that until you die.
Inshallah. Next question here is Lama, the social media influence, the dopamine levels, the likes on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, that's having an impact. When I don't get the likes on my picture, when I don't get the responses in the comments on something that I posted, it does have an impact. It affects my morale. It affects my mood, my day. Is that something that I can work on to move away from this constant drip of dopamine levels?
Yeah. First suggestion I always have for everyone is clean up your feed. Like clean up who you're following. Like actually look through all what you see on your feed. And if you see something that triggers any sort of like just feeling that's not a positive one, unfollow or mute it if it's hard for you to unfollow, because what you're consuming, even subconsciously, will affect the way you're feeling about yourself. And I go every day, I clean out my feed. Anytime I see something I don't like, unfollow or just mute. I just don't want to see it. And you have to choose what you're allowing into your head. So that's part one of the social media part. Part two is, okay, when I don't get likes, and obviously Instagram and social media, they've designed it to make it very dopamine heavy, right? So when you don't get the like, what do you make it mean? It means if I get like 5 likes, oh, that means people don't like me enough, or I'm not, people don't see my value, or I'm not valuable enough as much as other people. Look at this other girl, she gets more likes than I do. And so it's not the amount of likes, it's the amount of like, what do you make it mean when you don't get the likes you want? Now, it could be something you could work on, or you could just, I personally decide to, when I post something, I just delete the whole app. I'm like, I don't have time for this. It's just too hard. Like, it's sometimes this stuff is built against you. And so you could, I mean, there are days where I do spend time just working on not caring about it, but there are days where you just delete it, like post delete, but also knowing that it is coming from your head. It's not the social media, it's our brain making it mean something.
Thank you. Next question here is, how do I create this akhira mindset? I am too involved in my corporate lifestyle and corporate culture. I have very little time for dating. How do I build this akhira mindset that will help me refocus my life energy?
Yeah, couple of resources I love to recommend. I'm sure everyone has heard it, but Omar Suleiman's Jannah series. And another one I highly recommend is The Journey by Sheikh Mikhail Smith on the Qalam podcast. And when you're
Lama, 1 second, can somebody Google these, Junaid, Dr. Asiya, if you can Google and put the links in the chat window so folks can follow them and look up them. I'm responding to some messages, but if somebody could Google them and put them in the chat window for everybody. Could you repeat them one more time, please, Lama?
For sure. Yeah. The Jannah series by Omar Suleiman, that one's on YouTube. And then The Journey by Sheikh Mikhail Smith, and that one's on the Qalam podcast. And those are just describing what the akhirah is like, what the fear and the hope of Jannah and hell and all these things. And the reason why this is so important is when Islam came down to us, it started off with the spiritual understanding what hell, what heaven is, who Allah is, like just the basics. So we have to go back to the basics, the Jannah series, like, yeah, to just understand where are we going, what is the akhirah like. And when you're listening to these things, it develops a reality, like, oh, like this is actually a thing, like Jannah is like going to be like this, and he, subhanAllah, he describes a lot of details that come to reality in your brain. And so I always have to re-listen to like The Journey, especially. It shows like what is the actual life going to be like afterwards, and so constantly re-listening to this and will help with rebuilding that akhirah mindset, so that you know where you're going, and knowing that this dunya is literally nothing, is worth nothing compared to what we're going to get afterwards. Inshallah. I mean, may Allah put all of us in the highest ranks of Jannah. Ya Rab.
I mean, inshallah. The next question here, there's a couple of very sensitive questions dealing with masturbation and sexuality and other stuff. So I'm going to leave those towards the end. If anyone feels uncomfortable, they can they can hop off, but I'll leave those questions toward the end. The next question here is, how do I deal with ghosting, Lama? I am so tired of the constant parade of ghosting and going dark on us. How do I deal with that? Because it is mentally exhausting.
Zafar, I would love for you to answer this question because I know I've said it a lot. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with ghosting? What do you do?
So the advice that I had heard from you, I think that was one of the first topics you talked about at the beginning of the year. If they ghosted you, they weren't meant for you.
Yes. We want people to ghost us. It's faster for us to weed the ones that we don't want. If someone ghosts you, they don't have the capacity to communicate. They don't have the emotional ability to communicate what they're feeling, and they just decide to ghost. Alhamdulillah, they're not meant for us. They're not the kind of spouse you're going to want anyway. Now, the reason it hurts, the reason ghosting hurts is because you make it mean something. Now, that thought is what we need to work on. So let's say they're ghosting me, that means I'm not good enough, or like they don't care about me, or I did something wrong. That comes up a lot. Okay, we just have to kind of look at, all right, did I do something wrong? And if I did, let's just go there for a minute. Let's say I did say something that rubbed off the wrong way. Don't you want to be with someone who kind of asks questions back and like kind of communicates like, hey, what you said kind of bothered me. Can you, can you like kind of talk it through? But if they just decide to ghost you because you said something wrong, the marriage is going to be a lot harder if you marry someone like that. So let's just answer all those questions for yourself. If I said something wrong, or I ruined it, how did you ruin it? By saying something? Like you were just saying things, and if they meant to, they're just not meant for you. Let's just say that. They're not your person. And when your brain tries to convince you that you did something wrong and something's wrong with you, that's why they ghosted you. You got to catch on to that, and that's shaitan. It's never, let me tell you, it's never about you. It's about the image that they have created about you. They're rejecting that image, and they're never rejecting you because they don't know you. Only you know you, and you, Allah knows you. So yeah, exactly, Asya. Real people don't ghost. So we don't, those fake people, we don't want them.
I was going to say, Dr. Asya is dropping some truth bombs right here. She's, mashallah, she's very knowledgeable in this area. And we have a lot of doctors, psychiatrists, therapists on this call as well. So a lot of them are nodding in agreement and plus wanting and echoing what you're saying. Are you okay on time? We're a little bit over time. Are you okay on time? Do you want to go on for a few?
No, I'm having fun. But
the questions are coming in, and I got to tell you, this is one of the better sessions out of the 8 we've had so far, because the quality and the caliber of the questions are fantastic.
Yes.
So we're gonna keep going for a little bit longer so we can get through all the questions. And again, anyone here who wants to unmute themselves, just raise your hand. I am more than happy to have you answer your questions or comments or give some feedback directly to Lama. We want to give you that space to say what you need to say. So if you need to say something, just raise your hand in the thing, and we'll inshallah give you a platform to ask a question. The next question, excuse me. So the next question here, and by the way, thank you, Dr. Asya, for and both the Asya and Aisha as well for posting all the links as well. The next question here is, how do we get over doing the scary things, the unpleasant things? How can we build up that confidence, Lama, on doing the uncomfortable things that we don't want to do?
Yeah, I love this question. So what we're afraid of is a feeling. When we say we're afraid of doing scary things, we're afraid of how we're going to feel in that moment. And the worst thing that can happen to us as a human being is a feeling, which is a physical vibration in our body. So what does fear actually look like? Okay, fear for me is just, I just start sweating. I start like my heart is just beating a lot. And then, right, like my brain is telling me that I'm going to die, right? Right. So that's what fear is. And so we spend our life avoiding things that we want to do because we don't want to feel that feeling for a couple of minutes. And that's really what it takes, like a couple minutes for it to just kind of, just when you process it, it just takes like maybe 90 seconds, even scientifically. Like when you really think about it, it's just that feeling that you're afraid of. You won't actually die. And your brain is convincing you, if you talk to this person, and they reject you, you are going to die. Like that's what your brain thinks, because rejection means death. And oh my God, like don't do it. But when we think about it logically, what are we actually afraid of? We're afraid of, okay, if I approach this person and let's say the worst thing they say, the worst thing that could happen is they're just going to say no. And then my brain's going to interpret it and make it mean something's wrong with me. And then I feel shame. And then that's it. That's it. And then you're capable of feeling shame. When you learn how to feel any emotion and just like not afraid of it anymore, you'll master your life. Like honestly, like you're unstoppable. And what motivates me to do scary things is like, okay, the more scary things I do, the more I train my body and brain to know that it's okay to do scary things and I'm not going to die. And so it's an opportunity, right? Like always challenge yourself. Okay, what scary thing am I going to do today? And knowing how like my body's going to react, and then feeling proud of yourself. Like, you know what, Lama, I'm proud of you for actually putting yourself in that really uncomfortable situation. And let me keep doing it. Right.
There's a follow-up question from the same sister. She wants to know, I engage in this avoidance because I don't want to be disappointed. And that's what's stopping me from having those difficult conversations.
Yeah. And I actually just wrote a post on that. But those difficult conversations are, when you don't have them, it blocks people from having an intimate conversation, like an intimate relationship. Right. Like, so it comes down to a question, like, am I willing to feel disappointed to discover like another layer of our relationship, to open up a whole nother layer of like, okay, and and first of all, why is disappointment so scary for us? Because like, let's say we figure out the truth, and then the what disappointment is, oh, I'm not going to get what I want. Like, it's not what I expected. And then we feel disappointment. And so we can either use that to be like, you know what, I'd rather know ahead of time. Like, let me just get disappointed now so I don't like pile it up and get disappointed 5 years from now. Let me just ask an uncomfortable question, get disappointed, rip off the Band-Aid and move on. And you can ask the uncomfortable question, figure out the truth, and be like, oh, wow, like this is not what I expected, and also proceed and make a decision either way. But when it comes to uncomfortable like conversations, you have to ask, okay, am I willing to be disappointed now and get it over with? Or do I want to just kind of just avoid it for later? Because you're going to get disappointed either way. If the worst case scenario, right? Yeah. So
I'm going to pause there and see, does anyone have any additional questions? I have a few more to go through, but does anyone want to, I see a lot of comments. Dr. Asia, Dr. Misbah, if there's something that you'd like to add, Dr. Junaid, Dr. Sharif, feel free to unmute and add to anything that Lama has shared with us today.
Zafar, can I ask something real quick?
You said, of course. Yeah. Amar, go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
What was the original question, if I may ask? Because I was listening, but I kind of lost what was the first question to the follow-up that you just asked.
The first question was about they had this fear of disappointment, this approach. She was addressing that. It kind of held them back from engaging in conversation. They had trouble. They were avoiding the difficult questions, those uncomfortable conversations.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you so much, and thank you, Lama, for doing this.
Of course, yeah. Alhamdulillah. No, I also, on this growth journey mindset, find the things that are really uncomfortable. Those are your obstacles that you need to work on to, again, climb that ladder. So if it's really uncomfortable for you to get rejected, if it's really uncomfortable for you to, I don't know, talk to someone, those are the gold. That's the gold that you need to uncover the next version of you.
Okay, maybe you can address something it's going on in the other group, WhatsApp group. So maybe you can address about age difference. Some people are skeptical of, this is too old or this is too young. Maybe you can, share your thoughts on that and what's the ideal and what is not the ideal.
Yeah, that always goes back to personal preference. When someone has an opinion of like an expert saying, no, this is too old, this is too young, that's their opinion. Right. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, yes, this is the right age and this is the right age difference. it's really, I've seen so many age gaps that like 10, 15 years that work fine, that work amazing. And then like it really depends on the person and what they're willing to work through. And so I like to just see, are the two people, are they emotionally ready for each other? Like, do they communicate well? Do they, like, what are their obstacles that they need to work through together? That's what matters. And what are their own preferences? And because we have examples from our Sira, right? Our own companions, and you see the age difference there. So let's use our actual real truth of our deen, of what's a real what's okay and what's not okay.
The next question here, Lama, is about triggering. So if this is sensitive to anybody, you can hop off or mute, or come back later. But basically, they want to know, how do I know when I'm triggered, and what do I do? What should be my response when I'm triggered?
Triggered. Okay. I actually just did a class on this like a couple of days ago. It's on my Instagram if you guys want to watch that. But triggered is, I mean, there's such a vague question, but like let's say someone says something and you feel a certain way, you feel hurt. Okay, what to do is identifying why did this hurt me? When they said this thing, why did it hurt me? Okay, is because I made it mean that I don't know, that they're disrespecting me, or they don't care about me, or something, right? So first step is really identifying, okay, I noticed that I'm feeling hurt. And the reason I'm feeling hurt is because it's always coming from a thought. It's because he's disrespecting me, or she's doing this to me, or she's manipulating me. Okay, right? Whatever the thought is. When you identify it, the next step is to communicate. Hey, I feel this when you said this. And this I feel statement comes from the Gottman Institute. I don't know which book exactly, I forgot, but just communicating. I feel anxious, I feel disappointed when you say this. And then that can be followed by a boundary, which is next, please, a request, first of all, please don't say that again. And then if they keep saying it, you can put a boundary, which is, if you say this one more time, I'm going to hang up, or I'm going to leave, like, we're going to end this relationship. Because if they're not respecting your boundaries or none of that, that's another thing that needs to be worked on. So, but going back to what to do when you're triggered is identifying it for you. I feel triggered because I'm making it mean this. And then you openly communicate that to them. And if they're the type of person who dismisses you and says, oh no, like you're being delusional, that's kind of a type of gaslighting, that tells you a lot about the person. And that tells you what you can make decisions to make about whether to proceed or not. But it's your job to make sure you're being open and honest and vulnerable in that moment when you are feeling hurt, and doing sometimes also when you're really triggered, taking the time to step back and calm yourself down, right? Going, like, put the phone down, put whatever it is down, go out for a walk, take yourself out of the situation. For me, I like watching planet documentaries and seeing the world and being like, whoa, like there's so much out there, and it helps me calm me down again, and then going back to the situation.
Okay, next question here is about gaslighting. Lama, what is your definition or understanding of gaslighting? And when I'm having a conversation with a brother, I feel that sometimes he is poking to see what lights me up, what upsets me, and I feel vulnerable. So what is your understanding of gaslighting, so that I know that I'm not overreacting?
Definition of gaslighting, I guess, I'm not gonna give my own, what I understand gaslighting to be is when someone is convincing you that like you're crazy, right? Like what you're saying is not true, even though you believe it's true. And so, and we can look up what the actual definition is. I'm not like an expert on gaslighting, obviously, but okay, so you're saying if he asks you something and he keeps kind of picking on it, and you don't want to answer the question, that is your job to be like, I would rather not answer it. And why don't you want to answer it? Because it just makes me uncomfortable, and it's just not necessary to talk about. And this is we have to build up the skill to have boundaries. And I think maybe that's another topic to add to my list of things, to how to really have boundaries, and what does it mean to have strict boundaries and holding on to what is comfortable, what's not. And I would also like to suggest when someone is asking you something, what is it bringing up for you that feels really uncomfortable to talk about? Like, why is it really uncomfortable when they ask you this certain thing? And maybe it's something you really just don't want to talk about, and that's fine. And also, if it's something that you're ashamed of, it being vulnerable in that moment can really help, right? Like, oh, like, this is something that I'm not willing to talk about, and this kind of brings up shame for me, and I'm honest and right. And this, one of the sessions, I think it was like either the last one or the one before, is where I talked about being openly honest and vulnerable. And just, I recommend you watch that one. And if you want to follow up on that question, let me know.
The next question here is, when we are thinking about future spouses, our brain says to marry someone within an age range difference of about 3 to 5 years, instead of opening our thought process of finding the person whose chemistry matches more. In order to find whether our chemistry matches or not, is only possible to be open, get to know each other person. Why is our brain constantly choosing for us to go by the looks or the age? And how do I overcome this viewpoint of my brain?
Two things. I mean, this can be a preference, right? Like, it can still be a preference. Like, let's say I don't want someone 10 years older than me, and there's nothing wrong with that. So also, like, don't shame yourself for wanting someone within your age range, because there could be, like, generational like gaps and stuff like that. So I mean, don't shame yourself for what you want. So if you do want someone within your age range, there's no problem with that. And just asking yourself the question, like, oh, I wonder what would be like if I was open to someone 10 years older than me. What's that like? Let me give it a shot. And let's say you talk to someone 10 years older and you realize, oh, nope, that's just not for me. Or it is for you. You just have to explore. But I would say not to open up the range just because, like, oh, I guess I'm limiting myself to this age range and I'm probably never going to find my spouse. So let me open it up to 10 years because there's no hope. And that's the wrong reason to go about it, right? It's more of like, I'm curious what I would find up there. Maybe the maturity is different. Maybe it just depending on your reason, right? There's no right or wrong reason, but just question. If it's coming out of fear, is it a reason that you like? And if it is, then just go with it and see where it takes you.
Inshallah, we have about 10 minutes left and we have 3 more questions, so we'll try to get through these. Lama, I struggle with ghosting from my own siblings, and I am practicing the pause. Is this healthy to do? I want to be able to handle it in a healthy way if we start to talk again. I just want to tie the camel before I'm faced with talking to her again.
Yeah, and we're talking about the siblings here, or a person. Yeah,
siblings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So the tying your camel part is always why is this hurt? Like, for you, why does this hurt? Because we know a lot of people out there who don't, when they don't receive a text message back, they make it mean they're just busy, and they don't make it mean anything about them. So your job is, and I'm not saying, oh, don't take it personally, because it's hard to take where you're at now to just telling you, oh, don't take it personally. It's more of, the thought right now is, maybe if your siblings don't text you back, does it mean like they don't love me, or they don't care about me enough to text back on time? They don't prioritize me. That's a common one. And just, okay, realizing the first step, I am feeling what's it called, disappointed, or I'm feeling sad because of the thought they don't prioritize me. And that is the story that keeps coming up for me over and over when I see no text back. Like, we really have to simplify it, because when we try to get into the drama of trying to solve it, we have to notice first. The first step is, the only reason I'm feeling this pain, this feeling, is because of the story. They don't prioritize me, or they don't love me, or they don't care for me. And so I want to ask you to make sure you're specific on what is the thought for you, so that you can identify it and then change it to a thought that's 10% less sad, right? So the fact is, they didn't respond, and it just means like, maybe it means like they just didn't respond. That's it. There's no story behind it. They don't have, maybe they just literally didn't respond. It doesn't mean they don't prioritize me, don't care about me, they just didn't respond. because of other reasons. And yeah, so just play with that a little bit.
I'm going to pause here for a second to give people time to hop off, because the last two questions here are sexual in nature. It's very sensitive. I know we're all adults here, so I want to give people time. If you feel uncomfortable, squeamish about this topic or something that you don't want to listen to, I fully respect and understand that. So feel free to hop off. In the meantime, Lama, could you please put your calendar link again? There are several people who want to set up follow-up questions with you. They have a bunch of follow-up questions. If we get to all of these follow-up questions, we'll be here all night. So I'd rather them just schedule some one-on-one time with you and ask you these questions directly, because in response to some of your answers, they have a ton of follow-up questions. So I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them. We've only got a few minutes. So again, feel free to schedule that 1 hour free session with her. And any subsequent session, you have to understand that Lama is a professional. This is her livelihood. Do support her by continue to do more of these live sessions, and do seek professional counseling and therapy, psychiatry, psychology, psychiatric help, counseling, and other stuff, because some of this stuff, as few people have pointed out, this needs to be talked to a therapist about. So I want to make sure that you get the professional help, so that you're talking to the right people. It's all towards your betterment of your mental health. There's no shame, absolutely no shame in seeking counseling or therapy. It's a blessing. It is a sunnah. It is, the entire sections of the Quran is about mental health. It's about, being exposed to positive people, being outdoors, being in the sun, mental health, emotional health, all of that stuff. So there's a lot of emphasis on that. So there's no shame in our game in what we do, inshallah. So I think that's something that's important. Lama, the two questions, the sensitive questions here are my addiction to pornography, following Instagram model. This is leading to masturbation. This is leading to a waning libido. Is this something that may affect my intimacy level with my future spouse? So is that something that you feel comfortable answering?
Yeah.
Pornography addiction, looking at Instagram models and other stuff.
Yeah, so I've talked to people about this before, and it's such a big problem, and especially with the Muslim men in our community, pornography addictions, all of this is just it's a big deal, right? And so you can't really solve it on your own. It's hard. It's an addiction. You need a community. You need some sort of guidance to help you get off of it. And because there's so much shame around it, sometimes people don't ask for help. And so I'm trying to remember the resource if I could, but there was I can't remember. I'll have to link it to you. I'll send it to Zafar if I find it. But there was a specific sheikh that I send people to, not a sheikh, sorry, a resource on Instagram, that he has a program and stuff that he helps people with, Muslim men with pornography addictions. And so to answer your question, will it affect the marriage? It depends on how not strong, but how much are you willing to work on it? And actually, I've met a lot of married men who still have porn addictions, and it's affecting their sex life, and it's affecting a lot. And so knowing that it's going to affect it not only affects your sex life, it affects your confidence in yourself. It affects the way you feel and think and act, and it's poisonous, right? And so, and you know that, and you know it's bad, but addiction is a whole nother level that I highly recommend seeking professional help. This is not something you can do on your own. And even if people do, they kind of take a break for a month or two, but they relapse right away because they haven't built the skill to know how to feel what they need to feel in order to stop themselves, to stop that urge. And so it is a big topic. And inshallah, once I remember the resource that I'm trying to think of, but even just Googling how to, and there's definitely a lot of paid programs out there that I recommend investing in, no matter how much money it costs, to get yourself out of the situation. And
Dr. Misbah, I would like for her to weigh in on this. She has some thoughts on this. Dr. Misbah Qureshi, do you wanna chime in?
Yeah, thank you so much, Zafar, and thank you so much, Lama, for this great session. So I just want to say, like, I have a lot of extensive experience working with individuals with addiction. So if there's anybody that wants to reach out to me to consult around some of these challenges as well, I'll be happy to do that. But what I can say is, guys, like, there's a piece of us that has to recognize, obviously, that we're humans before anything else, right? And that we are apt to make mistakes and to learn from our mistakes. And we also live in a society that has a lot of different things going on, including all the traumas that we experience. So I've had the privilege of working with a lot of Muslim individuals who have suffered from addiction, whether it's pornography, whether it's substances, whether it's gambling, whether it's eating, etc. And I'm very familiar with, you know, the stages of change. You know, any type of addiction is a behavior that you have taken on over the years that has allowed you to cope with your anxieties, with the uncomfortable feelings, with the uncomfortable thoughts that kind of spiral in your head. And the definition of addiction is, regardless of what it is the inability to stop a behavior despite negative consequences, right? So that can be anything, right? And alhamdulillah, I've seen results in people that have had addictive behaviors, because it's really about substituting that one behavior to something more constructive. How has this done me disservice? And the negative consequences that come with this behavior, how can I channel them in a different way where it's more constructive? So I would love to have more conversations about that. I want to let you guys know, like, you know, this is my first time hopping on, and it's so great to see that so many of you guys showed up. But I am a mental health resource in the DMV area. Alhamdulillah, I'm licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and DC, and Delaware, and PA as well. And I'm trying to reach out and let, you know, the Muslim community know, like, there's help, guys. There's help out there, and I'm hoping I can create that safe space for you. So I'll have Zafar send out my emails for those that want to talk to me a little bit more, and then we'll kind of take it from there. If you have any specific questions for me, go ahead and send them my way as well.
Inshallah. Dr. Misbah, can you just put your calendar or email address in the chat window so people can reach out to you directly if they have any follow-up questions? The last question here, Lama, is from a sister, and she had been sexually active. She had chlamydia. She was worried. The person that she met at one of the ISNA conferences, or one of the ISNA singles events, they're pretty far along in the relationship. She wants some advice from you as to whether she should disclose to this individual, but if things are getting serious, that she had been sexually active, that she had an STD, because if she has any future children with this gentleman, with the suitor, she wants to know if she should reveal this information ahead of time, or she should just keep quiet because things are going so well and she's hoping to marry this individual. She's seeking some professional advice from you here. And I know you're not a medical doctor, but from a life coach, therapist point of view, what would you say?
Yeah, again, I think going back to Islamically, what I know, like, your past, you don't have to share your past with your future spouse. But if it is something that you know will affect your marriage, you know it'll affect whatever outcome will make from kids and all that, I think it is important to share that. Now, there's two layers to this, right? There's you processing and making peace with what you've done, and to make sure, like, you unshame yourself and bringing it up in a way that's like, hey, this is my past. This is what it is. Now, do you want to continue or not? Right. And make that's kind of an important part, but for you to do your own work is kind of preparing, how do I want to bring this up, and making sure you're cleaning up your thoughts about the your past. Like, you could bring it up in a way that's my question to you, is like, how do I want to bring this up? Because if right now you're having like a lot of shame and like, I really don't want to bring this up and he might reject me, he could reject you. He really could. And so in that moment, we can decide ahead of time, how do you want to feel about it when it happens? Because that's the beauty of our brains, is that we can actually decide, okay, I'm going to bring this up for the sake of transparency, and I have to, because of, you know, how it's going to impact our future kids and our future. So I'd rather bring this up now and decide, okay, when he does reject me, what do I want to feel? I'm going to feel, you know, I'm going to feel disappointed. I'm going to feel like that sucks, but he has every right to his own feelings, right? And so you kind of just deciding ahead of time how you want to feel about it, how you want to prepare to say it, all these things. And that's a hard one to kind of bring up, right? So if you want to just talk to me or talk to me, any one of us. Yeah.
I'm gonna have her. Yeah, I'm gonna have her reach out to you. We also have the two other therapists on the MATE staff who have dealt with similar situations. I'm going to have her reach out to them as well, so she could have them one-on-one. I will share with you my understanding and my experience with a family friend that we've known. Lena and I have known for a long time. Lena went to school with her, went to Sunday school with her. She was you know, not sexually active at the time of marriage. However, after marriage, she had several miscarriages where she was not able to conceive. And when she did some testing, she found out that she had an STD. When she asked her husband about it, at the time, he did mention that he was sexually active before they got married, and that caused their divorce, because she felt that he held that information from her, and that resulted in her losing 2 children in the conception phase. And so she felt devastated. Alhamdulillah, she got over it. She got remarried. Now she's had, you know, 3 beautiful daughters, and she's moved on. But that was a traumatic experience for her, and she went through severe depression, anxiety, and lots of therapy before she could, you know, build herself back up again. So for the sake of your future partner, my advice to you, sister, is to just be upfront and open about it. And, you know, inshallah, you know, because you are being truthful and you're seeking that path of redemption and making peace with yourself and your creator, that Allah will make your path easy for you, inshallah. I mean, Lama, this has been a wonderful session. Thank you again for our 8th and our 9th beautiful session. This is fantastic. Everyone, please do schedule some time on her, support her and her business. If you like these sessions that we do, I do ask that you do donate, because, you know, MATE is run on donations, it's run on support. It allows us to bring in speakers like Lama and all these other therapists. So please support us. Even the last couple of sessions, we've asked people for a $5 donation. It doesn't have to be a lot, but a small amount of donation, you can do it here. I'm going to put the information here in the chat window. Help us to keep the lights on. Help us to make these flyers, to pay for our admin team. We have a new website that's going to be rolling out the first week of October. It'll list all the events. We have 15 events coming up in 2024. We have all these programs. We have Imam Khalid Latif, Sohaib Webb, and others joining our team. We need all the resources and support we can get. And Lama, inshallah, will be doing plenty more of these sessions and workshops in the future with us, along with Zara and James, 2 other amazing life coaches. We have 3 sessions signed up with Zara and James, 1 in October, 1 in November, 1 in December. The last session, life coach session, we had 350 people sign up for those sessions, and it was a fantastic session. And we did 5 videos there that Lama, I think you watched those videos, right? What was your impression of those?
Oh, definitely. Everyone needs to watch it. Yep. It's very good. So
what are some of the topics that they covered in those sessions?
Just understanding, like, being open to love. Like, how do we know? A lot of us kind of block ourselves from being open to love because we've already decided ahead of time it's probably not meant for me, and just all these thoughts that we have that are blocking us. And so Zahra covered a couple of them. And so it just really helps to kind of open yourself up to the possibility that it is actually meant for you. And it just requires you to change your thoughts about yourself, about your future, about what is possible for you. And it's so that's the prerequisite of what it takes to actually, you know, get married and do all these things is what are your thoughts? What are your beliefs about all this stuff?
Yeah, it's very good. And they're a husband and wife team that have been married for 15 years. They have 3 beautiful daughters together, and they have a lot of wisdom and experience. So I do encourage all of you guys to check out those sessions, inshallah. And we'll see you at the upcoming event. Next Saturday is our Boston event. We've got 300-400 singles coming for the Boston event at the Worcester Islamic Center. That's going to be a massive one, probably our biggest singles event, a live event of the year. And then in October, November, December, we have Austin, Houston, and Dallas. We're going to end the year with these last live events. So inshallah, we're expecting good turnout. For the people in the DMV area, December 2nd is game night. So please don't forget to register for that one. We have 40 brothers and 40 sisters who will be coming for the DMV area game night on Saturday, December 2nd. And inshallah, with people like Brother Hassan and a few others, I want to do a hiking and a s'mores event sometime before it gets too cold, sometime in the Midwest, Michigan area. So we'll do a few more events in that part as well. If you're in Philly, I am doing a singles event in the Philly area as well. Let me know. That will target the Philly, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey community. We hope to do a nice small singles event there as well, inshallah. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for the work that we do, and for believing in us, and for all the support that you give us at these events, inshallah. Lama, thank you again. Everyone has her calendar, and inshallah, we'll see you guys at the next session next month that's coming up. Okay?
Oh, thank you so much, Zafar. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care, guys. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Bye.